Good morning. My name is Nick Bell, and I'm going to run through how to manipulate some data in an Excel spreadsheet using pivot tables. So here in front of us we've got some data exported out of Uniform using a report that I've written in their report writer. You'll see we've got freeze brand number, mobility score, last mobility score date, or locomotion score date as they call it in Uniform, lactation number, days in milk, pregnancy status, and last recorded milk yield. So firstly, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to highlight all of the data. So I've just clicked on that arrow on the corner there, and then I'm going to add a filter button so I can check some data. So I'm just going to have a quick look. That's all the freeze brand numbers. Okay, we check that all the mobility scores are right. So yep, that looks fine. We look at dates of the mobility scoring, and now what we can see is that we've got several different dates. So 29th of June, 29th of May, 28th of June, and we've got one 28th of July. I'm just interested in the July scoring. The reason these other ones have popped up is I've asked for the last mobility score in the last 100 days. So there'll be some cows in the list that for whatever reason, and we can maybe explore why, that their last score wasn't the 28th of July. So my guess is it's because we've got some dry cows in there that missed the last scoring. So let's have a look at the dry cows. And yes, there we go. These dry cows, some of them have had a score on the 28th of July, but a lot of them had scores in June or even May. So that would explain why we've got some other scores in there. But it could be that cows being culled or something like that. So I'm just interested in the last scoring. So all I've done there is deselected the May and the June scoring. Now what I'm going to do next is I'm going to highlight all the data again, and I'm going to insert pivot table. So I've gone to insert pivot table, click on that. I'm given a few options, so it'll be happy with the data that I've selected, and it's offering me either a new sheet or the existing sheet. I'm going to go with a new sheet just to keep it neat and tidy. So click OK, and it's produced a blank pivot table which I'm now going to populate. So you can do it one of two ways. You can drag the field that you're interested in into one of the 4 boxes below the list here on the right hand side, or we could drag it over into the table on the left here. So it's whichever you prefer. So you can do it either way. So we could drag that over here, and there it gives us 4 mobility scores, but also notice it's popped it down on the bottom here amongst the rows. So the next thing I want to do is just work out how many cows had each score, and we can do that. We could drag the cow number, and again we can drag it either to the bottom like so, but what it's done is it's done the sum of the cow numbers. We could easily alter that by clicking on this little arrow on the right hand side of the sum of number, clicking on the value field settings and changing that to count. So it's counted the number of cows that matches each of these mobility scores. The other way we could do it, if we pop those back in the list there, the other way we could do it is we could drag date, and date would automatically count the number of dates that corresponded to each of these mobility scores, which is in effect the same thing as the number of cows, given we've got just one score for that date for each cow. But if we weren't sure whether we had one score for that date for each cow, then we might be better to use cow number. So now the next thing we want to do is convert these counts into percentages, and that's we can do that quite simply. Let's put percentage there, and now we type in equals, we click on this cell and then divide it by the number of scores, which we got here at the bottom here. And we do that for each of the sums. Unfortunately, in pivot tables you can't drag the formula down. And we can just do a quick check that that all adds up to 1. That's good. Now there's a button that will convert these into percentages quite quickly and easily. So we've got the home screen ribbon at the top here, and you'll notice in the middle of the ribbon there's a little percentage sign. We can click on that, and then just to the right of that you can see there's a button that says increase decimal. So let's click on that. I think 1 decimal point is probably appropriate for this type of analysis. And there we go. We've got 10% were score zeros, 84.5% were score 1s, 4.9% were score 2s, and 0.6% were score 3s. That's given us our percentages. We could quite quickly and easily convert that into a graph, and I can show you quickly how to do that using a pivot chart. So if we go back to the raw data and we go to insert, instead of pivot table we can scroll across to pivot chart. It's populated the pivot chart tool with the same data. I'm going to go in a new spreadsheet again, click OK, and we've got the same familiar pivot chart field bit on the right hand side. So I'm going to do the same thing again. I'm going to put well, in this instance, yeah, I think we'll put the scores there. We could do this slightly differently, and this is one of the wonderful things with pivot charts or pivot tables, is that you can alter the way you present the data. So we could put them across the mobility scores as the legend, and then we just perhaps want to do we could do the dates. I'll need to think about this for a second. Let's not do dates. Okay, here we go. We've got sum of cow number. Let's change it to count. There we go. And now what we want to do is change this chart. We can click on this. We can change this chart design to a stacked chart. There we go. So now we've got mobility score 3, mobility score 2, mobility score 1, and mobility score 0 in a stacked chart. Unfortunately, what we haven't got here are percentages. We've just got the absolute counts. We can change the colour on here. Let's change that to green because they're sound. Let's change this one to yellow because we're not quite sure about the score 1s. We'll change that one to that colour, and then the last, let's change that to bright red. There we go. I like looking at the tables and then converting the tables into percentages. We can quite quickly and easily convert this to a stack chart. We can do that by going to insert chart. We'll pick a stacked chart. In this instance, it's decided to pop it this way, so what we might need to do is just switch the row and column data around, and again we've got the same thing, but in this instance we've got the percentages on the left hand side already made for us. So that's a crash course on pivot tables. In the next recording, I'm going to talk about using pivot tables to rearrange data, lesion data, into a meaningful way. Thank you.